We all look for something that makes the world make sense. And for Solaire, he looked for light in a world filled with shadow. Dark Souls is incredibly complex when you look at the philosophical implications written in, and Solaire is a prime example of that. In a story filled with depraved and hopeless characters, he looks for hope, knowing that hope and meaning isn't handed to you. Even in this dying world that literally ends in an infinite crumbling desert, it was Solaire who first introduced us into his journey of finding the sun. But there's a cautionary tale here, because while his search is inspiring, it ultimately leads him to being consumed.
The sun is a wondrous body, like a magnificent father. If only I could be so grossly incandescent.
This is one of his most memorable quotes, but he will never be what he seeks out. Because at the end of the story, you find out he wasn't looking for the sun, he was looking for a parasite. If you kill the literal parasite, Solaire eventually becomes hopeless and seemingly failed at his own search. Solaire never was looking for the sun. He was looking for a mockery of it, and he didn't know it. His mistake was finding meaning in something outside of himself. He was naive in the first place, but he was hopeful. It could have led him anywhere, but he really does teach that meaning isn't found outside of you, but in you.
I didn't do all that for your sake.
As somebody who loves both, it's very interesting to see the stark comparison between Solaire's almost naive search for a son and another character's misery in seeking out revenge. For both, the sun is there, somewhere lost deep. They both seek it out relentlessly, but ultimately one lives on hope. Guts isn't that one. He doesn't place any stakes on hope. The only time he's, for lack of a better term, fortunate enough to even consider that feeling is when Casca, his partner, is involved. It is for her, and only her, that Guts ever recognizes hope. For him, it seems that she is hope, but every other time in the story, it is almost always just getting through suffering with sheer will and determination, even if it is just to survive. Guts is miserable, but he's not a quitter, he's not a loser. He's nowhere near anything desolate or even hollow most of the story. In fact, it's the opposite. He's alive, so alive that his luck and will to live is beyond any other character. The things he's seen, lost, found, let go of, easily marks him as one of the most tragic characters you will follow. But it is from him that you recognize that reality can't be avoided, no matter how brutal it is directly confronted. Otherwise, you're playing into a fantasy. Strength is for him built through enduring the truth. And Skull Knight said those exact words that echo in the shadow of Guts.
Heed my words, struggler. Struggle, endure, contend. For that alone is the sword of one who defies death.
Pain for him is not enough to surrender, and ultimately, it's moving forward that gives his life meaning. And it becomes even more noble when you do it for something more than yourself, whether it's protecting others, or simply because human will is more than enough to outlive the horrors he sees. But even for Guts, he's not out of luck, he's not out of good either. He's lost, yeah, but even he needs a bit of comfort at the end of the tunnel.
In a world filled with misery and uncertainty, it is a great comfort to know that, in the end, there is light in the darkness.
Religion is a very well explored but very interesting aspect of characters in fiction, especially games, because a lot of them are friendly, while some aren't. And there really is a stark difference of how they're represented, often being either blindly hopeful, drawing on their religion, linking catastrophes around them to it, and others are just straight up maniacs. But there's one that is oddly realistic, oddly composed without falling into either. Conflicted, yeah. Complex, absolutely. But wise enough to make even the most atheist players recognize the meaning in his quotes. That's where Joshua Graham shines. If Solaire's journey is one of seeking out your own destiny and journey, then Guts's is one of finding meaning in endless suffering and pushing forward regardless of destiny. Then it is Joshua's that is one of surviving. It's very evident of how big of a role Joshua plays in the legacy that New Vegas has left behind, serving as a hopeful catalyst for a lot of people. And it shows. This is a man covered in bandages, burned beyond recognition. If he was without them, if you were there with him, you could probably hear them subtly scrape against each other, layer after layer. Sitting down in a cave, inspecting an endless pile of M1911s, just to share his wisdom with us. Solaire never had that conviction. He never had true belief in himself. Guts lacks meaning in something bigger than himself, while Joshua, he finds solace in God. Even if you don't believe, it's still the strongest hook in his story that matters the most to his character. A man tossed into the Grand Canyons, burned alive, and he still survives. He could have turned to hate, to defeat, turning hollow in the process. But it's purpose in serving his community and leading them that brings him purpose and meaning. Purpose in being a greater good in the face of a literal nuclear wasteland. And I'm sure Joshua would want you to like and subscribe.